It was a really emotional project for us, and it meant a lot to us. And that's the reason we wanted to share it with you guys, but we really were not sure.
If you've ever found yourself daydreaming about quitting your day job, packing up your life, and moving to the French countryside, the Chateau Diaries is the ultimate manifestation of that fantasy, served with a side of freezing winters, collapsing floors, and a whole lot of antique porcelain. The story of the Chateau de Lalande is part reality show, part historical restoration project, and entirely a testament to the power of internet communities. Here is the full story of how a crumbling 16th century estate became a global YouTube phenomenon. The Mad Dream, 2005, the story actually begins long before the cameras started rolling. In 2005, Stephanie Jarvis and her best friend from university, Nick, decided to do something most people would consider completely unhinged. At the age of 29, they sold their sensible London flats, pooled their money, and bought the Chateau de Lalande in the heart of rural France. Stephanie's boyfriend at the time, Michael Potts, also bought into the dream, and later her lifelong family friend Jerry Grady became a co-owner as well. Everyone thought they were crazy, except Stephanie's parents. The early years were anything but glamorous. They lived in a freezing construction zone, tackling asbestos, digging trenches for geothermal heating, and updating ancient plumbing. Tragically, right as the heaviest renovations were wrapping up, Stephanie's beloved father, Derek Jarvis, an artist whose vibrant paintings now decorate the chateau, passed away. The loss hit her incredibly hard, stalling the project for a time. But ultimately, the chateau became a place of healing and joy for her to carry on his artistic, joyful legacy. The U-to-Tube explosion, 2018 to 2020. For over a decade, Stephanie kept Lalande afloat by running it as a bed and breakfast and hosting music workshops. In 2018, she picked up a camera and started the Chateau Diaries vlog to document the ongoing endless renovations. Then, the 2020 pandemic hit. With millions of people trapped inside their homes globally, a sunny, relentlessly optimistic English woman wearing beautiful dresses while fixing up a French castle became the ultimate form of escapism. Viewership absolutely skyrocketed. People weren't just watching a home improvement show, they were invited to a continuous lively dinner party, the Chateauverse and the cast of characters. You really can't talk about the Chateau Diaries without mentioning its incredibly colorful, ever-rotating cast of residents, family members, and volunteers. The Chateau de Lalande operates almost like a modern-day bohemian commune, and the people who pass through its doors are just as much of a draw as the 16th century architecture itself. Take Philip Jansen, for example. He originally arrived at the chateau simply as a volunteer looking to help out, but he eventually became Stephanie's romantic partner and right-hand man. Philip is famous among viewers for his absolute, unapologetic obsession with porcelain, elaborate table settings, and hunting down auction house treasures. Whether he's meticulously arranging a grand dining room or convincing Stephanie to buy yet another set of vintage plates, he works tirelessly to keep the chateau's grand, historic dining traditions alive. Then there is the delightful generational contrast brought by Stephanie's mother, Isabel, affectionately known to everyone as Mummy, and her charming South African husband Percy. Isabel is incredibly loving but wonderfully strict and practical, providing a hilarious grounded counterweight to Stephanie's chaotic, "let's buy more wallpaper" optimism. When they visit from South Africa, their dynamic adds a brilliant layer of family sitcom energy to the vlogs. The chateau also relies heavily on its core residents to keep the building from actually falling down. You have Stephanie's cousin Amory, a master carpenter who tackles the massive, complex structural projects, like entirely rebuilding the historic paneling in the Grand Salon, and Natty, the fiercely organized chateau manager who keeps the bed and breakfast bookings and volunteers in line. Naturally, the two of them fell in love while working together, adding yet another romance to the mix. And of course, there are the alumni, the volunteers and friends who made such a massive impact that fans absolutely refused to let them go. People like Marie Wieck, the talented Norwegian florist who brightened the chateau with her arrangements and culinary skills, or Selma, the quirky Dutch handyman who won hearts in the early seasons. Perhaps the most notable is Dan the gardener. He started out tackling Lalande's overgrown grounds and cooking meals, and eventually launched his own wildly successful YouTube channel. Escaped to rural France, where he is currently single-handedly rebuilding a massive burnt-out chateau ruin. So many of these beloved alumni went on to launch their own thriving channels that they essentially created a sprawling, interconnected YouTube neighborhood that fans lovingly refer to as the Chateauverse. The Patreon miracle. As the channel's popularity exploded, so did its Patreon account. Viewers wanted to help save the building, and they showed up in droves. The Chateau Diaries quickly became one of the top Patreon accounts in the world, bringing in tens of thousands of dollars a month. Recognizing the immense responsibility of this funding, Stephanie created a legal non-profit association. 100% of the Patreon money goes directly and exclusively into the restoration of the historic building, funding massive, wildly expensive projects like restoring the 19th century chapel, saving the crumbling floor of the Grand Salon, and the ongoing saga of trying to refill the estate's dried-up lake. Stephanie's personal living expenses are funded through YouTube ad revenue and the B&B. If you're wondering what the Lalande crew is up to today, rest assured that the signature blend of chaos, charm, and historic preservation is still in full swing. Stephanie and the team are juggling a packed schedule of new restorations, grand plans, and international adventures, proving that a chateau owner's work is quite literally never done. The dust is definitely still flying across the estate as they tackle some massive renovation milestones. If you walk through the chateau right now, you'll see real progress taking shape. Recent structural and aesthetic projects include the meticulous installation of cuving in the new Chateau wine store, a project that adds that essential touch of period-appropriate elegance. Meanwhile, the heavy lifting continues with new framework going up in the grand dining room, and the long-awaited kitchen corridor is finally inching toward completion. Watching these spaces transform from crumbling construction zones back into 16th century splendor remains one of the most satisfying parts of the journey. Beyond the physical restorations, the chateau is also gearing up for an influx of visitors. Stephanie recently launched the highly anticipated 2026 guest season, which has everyone buzzing. This year, they are introducing special chateau retreats, which opens the grand wooden doors even wider for fans who want to experience the magic in person. Staying at Lalande has never been just a standard bed and breakfast experience. It's a chance to step directly into the vlog, sit at the grand table, and soak in the communal bohemian atmosphere that viewers have fallen in love with over the years. The beloved extended chateau family also continues to grow, shift, and evolve. While people often come and go from Lalande, the bonds they form remain strong. Marie Wick, for example, recently started a new job, and Stephanie actually made a special trip just to visit her and celebrate the milestone. Back at the chateau, Philip is still heavily involved in both the renovations and the styling. He recently debuted a snappy new short haircut, and in his typical thoughtful fashion, just organized a massive, beautiful surprise for Stephanie's mother, Isabel, all the way over in South Africa. Of course, the aesthetic vision for the chateau requires constant treasure hunting. Never ones to pass up a good antique auction or brocante, Stephanie and Philip recently took their sourcing efforts international with a dedicated trip to Dublin. They travelled to Ireland specifically to hunt down some incredible, unique historical pieces to add to the chateau's ever-growing collection of art and furniture. It just goes to show that decorating Lalande isn't just a chore. It's a lifelong, border-crossing passion project. The real magic of Lalande. What makes the full story of the Chateau Diaries so interesting isn't just the architecture, it's the sheer vulnerability and candor of its host. Stephanie doesn't hide the messy parts. When a structural beam fails, or the heating breaks in the dead of winter, or relationship dynamics shift, the audience sees it. It's a story about finding joy in the mess, welcoming strangers into your home, and the sheer stubborn will required to bring a 400-year-old building back from the brink of ruin.